Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honors, and honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. And last but not least, I want to give my peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect, the house of the faith, wherever you may be, scattered across the four corners of the earth. To you all, I say shalom, and may the blessing of election be upon you and your household. Shalom to the hopeful elect. I was inspired by the video that Elder Yashawamba made. Actually, hit the gym. Before I hit the gym, I had several topics to discuss in my lesson, and I proceeded to watch Elder Yashawamba's video and the news and prophecies and what's currently going on within the world, within society, right? Feeling the temperature of the earth, seeing what Jake is talking about, because things are moving, things are hastening quick. We are approaching the end, and the Most High, Yahweh Shemel Shai, he is putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, right? Let me get a sip of this water. I'm a little bit fatigued, my muscles, man. I destroyed myself in that gym working on my core, right? But I was also working on my upper body strength because, I want to develop my chest more, chest, shoulders, and then start working on my core even more. And the core, man, the core is the stabilizer of the body, going off topic. But the core is the stabilizer of the body. If you have a strong core, you're able to squat more, right? Because your body can stabilize itself when it comes to heavier loads. Even when it comes to benching, when you stabilize yourself, you use the core. The core also helps when you're transferring the power of your punches from your hips, your legs, all the way up to your arms. Your core is the center of it, all right? So the core is very important, okay? And I've started to take my core very seriously now because Yahweh Ratazah, Lord willing, I want to go back to doing boxing, martial arts. That's the type of lifestyle that I was living before things went disarray. I was very, very active, okay? Boxing, kickboxing. I love that, man. I love that shit. I love that shit. But, that's something that I love, right? So, yeah, I'm just doing the proper training needed to strengthen those areas. But nevertheless, right, going back to the topic at hand, all the puzzles all the pieces of the puzzles are coming together, and the Most High is working his work, okay? And it's being shown, right? You have Jake that may be aware of what's going on, but majority of them they're still asleep, right? Now, the whole federalization thing, that woke a couple of Jakes up, but for the most part, Jake is like, they ain't coming to our city, They're hoping that the mayors, the governors of these different states, cities will defend them. But the only thing that's going to really defend you is Yahweh Shemel Shai. You can't trust the man. All right, now let me go to Ezekiel, the 7th chapter. Also, a shout out to Elder Apostle Gabar for that video that he did. I did have a few questions about it, but he talked about how he's on the carnivore/keto diet. And I 100% agree. The carnivore/keto diet is probably the best diet out there, because when I eat a lot of vegetables, I notice that I get bloated, okay? So really, you want to eat less vegetables, like maybe a cup or two, just so you can have that fiber in you and then eat more protein. Especially if you're working out, you're doing all types of things, lifting, right? You're very active, and even when you're older, up in age, you want to eat more protein. Okay, up your protein intake, because that's what strengthens the body, that what keeps you going. Okay, you notice that people who are entirely vegan, like, they look malnourished. All right. So this is Ezekiel, the 7th chapter. All right. And I'm going to start at verse 5. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh. So this is the words of the Almighty Power, what people call God on earth, right? They have this saying that, oh, God can judge me. God can judge me. Well, here, the Most High is going to judge you. But before he judges, he's going to use the mouth of his prophets. All right? Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, and evil, and only evil, right? Behold, is come. So that evil is a bad time, an ill period, right? And Jake will always say, well, we already went through that time of evil, right? The time of Jacob's trouble. But the scripture says it's going to be like a time like never before. Let's go ahead and get that, Jeremiah. Okay, a time like never before. This is Jeremiah 30, verse 7. It says, Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. So there's none other time that's likened unto Jacob's trouble. Now, we may have had different periods in time where we might have been, well, I wouldn't say might, but were in trouble, right? You had the Inquisition period. You had the, going into the Inquisition, right? The American exploration, okay? The so-called discovery of the New World. And going on even further than that, you had different men and really men that went into different lands and subjugated the northern kingdom of Israel, right? Being of the 10 tribes of Israel, from Issachar, Zebulun, Naphtali, Asher, and so on and so forth, right? All these different groups. So they came in and did what they have to do. And then you also had Judah, Benjamin, and Levi being brought forth from the west coast of Africa, right, being taken against their will into a new land. Scripture talks about that in Isaiah, that shall toss thee around like a ball, okay? And even before that, you had the medieval time period, okay? And then going on from the medieval time, you had what? You had the Renaissance period. And even further than that, all the different captivities that our people have been in, right? It wasn't to their welfare. It was to their detriment. Okay, but this is the captivity where, when you compare it to the previous captivities, we knew who we were. But in this captivity, we do not know who we are. The majority of us do not know who we are. Okay, but the prophets, the men of the Lord, they're being raised up, right, to tell you who you are. The valley of the dry bones is waking up. Okay? And it starts with what? The men of the ancients, the men of the Lord. Okay? But he shall be saved out of it. The he is referring to the elect. The Most High is going to cover the hands of the elect. Let's go in and get that. My hand shall cover thee. Shall cover thee. This is 2nd Esdras 2, verse 29. It says, my hands shall cover thee, so that thy children shall not see hell. Okay, so the elect will be covered. They will be under the protection of Yahweh Shai, of the Almighty Power and His Son. Okay, and what the elect will be doing now in these days are what? Repenting, okay, seeking the Lord. As it says in Joel, it was in your mind to go astray from the Lord. Let's go in and get that. It was in your mind to go astray. Okay, this is forgive me, it was in the book of Baruch. This is Baruch 4, verse 28. For as it was in your mind for as it was your mind to go astray from Yahweh. So, being returned, seek him 10 times more. Okay, so we have returned as a nation of people to Yahweh Shemi Ashai, and we're going to do our best to seek him 10 times more. And that includes what? Hearkening unto the prophets, okay? Hearkening unto your teachers, hearkening unto the men of the Lord, reading, learning, praying. Praying is very important. Okay, I find myself praying 4 times a day. But even that can be, it can be a bit excessive, but really, there's no such thing as being excessive when it comes to praying. Because that's you communicating to Yahweh Shemi Ashai. And it also strengthens your faith. You believing in those prayers, okay? Reading, meditating on the scriptures is a huge thing. And something that I like to do, right, is I'll meditate on what has happened to me, and I'll meditate on the future. Okay, I think about different dreams that I have. I think about different scenarios I might be faced with. I'll think about dying for the testimony of Yahushua, having my head chopped off. I ready my mind for that, I always tell the Lord, don't allow me to die today. Don't allow me to die the death of a heathen or a 2/3. Okay, if I were to die, let me die defending your name. Let me die for your testimony. That's the type of spirit that I have, because I want my death to mean something. Okay? There's nothing wrong with having glory in this thing, but you have to go about it the right way. You have men that want glory for themselves, but no. When you obtain glory, it has to be for the benefit of Yahweh Shemi Ashai. Okay? So from there, let me go to, I had another precept, but I think I lost it. Forgive me. Yeah, I lost it. Spirit had me go somewhere else. So, okay, yeah, let me read continue reading Ezekiel, the 7th chapter. All right, verse 6 says, "An end is come. The end is come. They watch it for thee. Behold, it is come." And only the men of the Lord are watching for the end. Okay, the men of the Lord are watching for the end, but majority of our people are not watching for the end. But the end is watching for them. It's going to creep on them. That's why it talks about Yahushua, what? Entering like a thief in the night. When they least expect it, that's when he's going to break through. The majority of our people are going to get caught off guard. They're going to be caught unaware, right? They're going to be running, hiding, and screaming, looking for the names of the Lord, looking for those men that they were talking shit about. But the Most High is not going to be found. Because why? In the time of destruction, Yahweh Shemi Ashai has been removed his prophets out the scene. As it says, which shall hide itself. That's in the book of 2nd Esdras, the 5th chapter. Okay, so during that time, wisdom is going to be hidden. All right, it's only going to be known of her children. So I'm going to read a few articles, right? I got a few articles here. The stage is set. Yahweh Shemi Ashai has set the stage for chaos. Okay? What's the word I'm looking for? Another word for chaos. Let's see, a Hindu word for chaos. I think it's Hindu? Chaos. Nah, not that. I don't know why, but every time no, I wouldn't say every time, but it's like, damn, it's like a lot of people now want to start just start crowding around me. It's like, damn, can you park somewhere else? After I do this lesson, I'm gonna go ahead and go for a run, a jog, just to get my blood flowing. That's something that I like doing, get my blood flowing. So maybe I'm thinking about something else. I'm gonna leave that alone. All right, let's get into the news articles. So you have one here. It says Trump. The hell? It says Trump is mobilizing, right? Trump is mobilizing up to 1,700 National Guard troops in 19 states to widen crime and immigration crackdown. So you have what Trump is doing. He's using the president of D.C., right, Posse Comitatus. He's using that as a president, saying, "Look, you know, look at how much we clean up D.C. Crime is no longer happening. Shootings have stopped. We arrested a lot of murderers. So let's try to spread this to other states." And the elites are watching, seeing how the people react, and the people are not doing anything. They're praising this solution, right? Through problem, reaction, solution. And this is going to open the way for what? The military, not just the U.S. military, any military to patrol the American people, okay? You're not supposed to have a standing army. You're not supposed to have a military patrolling civilian life. The military is supposed to be used, right, to defend against domestic terrorists, but not as a standing army, especially when you're carrying weapons, service weapons. All right? This thing is going to spin out of control. And you Edomites, just like how Eliyahu Wamba mentioned in his video, how you got a lot of Edomites cheering because they think, you know, this is for Jake. No. This is not only for Jake. This is for you crackers too. Because you guys are going to get caught up into this mess. You know, the elites, they have an agenda. They want to cut off about 7 billion people from the earth. Okay? And their main opposition, because the rest of the European nations, they're weak. Okay? They're weak. You know, you have some of them like those crazy ass Eastern Europeans, which a lot of them are, Jake. Right? Them crazy ass Eastern Europeans that are not going to go for it. That's why they always have a lot of civil wars over there in the Balkans and whatnot. They're going to have harsher measures for them, you know, NATO and whatnot. But for the West Europe and then America, man, especially America's going to be their main opposition. West Europe, forget about it. You know, them Edomites over there, they're going to do whatever they're told. But America, Eastern Europe, those are the main areas of opposition, especially here in America, because you got these gun-toting, strong biblical foundation Edomites that are going to grab their pistols, right? They're going to grab their ARs. They're going to grab their Daniel Defense rifles, you know, their Armor Lights, their M4s, their M7s. Okay, they're going to grab their pistol carbines, rifles, and they're going to go to work. Okay? They're going to go to work. You're going to have some that go to work against Esau. You're going to have some that are going to go to work against the government. It's just going to be all-out chaos. And that's what Yahweh Shemiah Shai has planned for this place, right? Because pursuant to Isaiah, the 19th chapter, man, what the hell are these people doing? Isaiah, the 19th chapter, talks about the burden of Egypt. Okay? Verse 2, it says, I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall... Actually, I started verse 1. It says, the burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord, Yahweh Shemiah Shai, rideth upon a swift cloud. And if you have heard or have not heard, there's like a what's it called? There's an image that NASA took a picture of, right? Of like huge UFO, so-called UFO approaching the earth. That's the Lord, Yahweh Shai, right? Approaching this earth. It shall come into Egypt, right? It spoke about him entering the house of the priest. The curse, right, that goes throughout the whole world. And the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence. You know, the idols of Egypt, the gods, the philosophies, even the NWO, that's an idol. Okay, all that's going to be moved right at the presence of the Lord. And the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it, right? Because when the Lord comes back, it's going to say that the multitude were afraid but durst fight. You know, that mindset or spirit, patriotic spirit of Egypt You already seen it now. You have a lot of patriots that do not want to fight for this country because they see that it's corrupt. The whole Jeffrey Epstein files and so on and so forth. So many things going on, right? So that heart, that mindset, the patriotic um, spirit of Esau is down low. That's why Trump was able to win the elections. We all know it's set up, but the main boost behind his campaign was what? Bringing America back, right? Having America made great again. And that's what drove a lot of people, Edomites, Jake, different nations, to go vote for him. Because he sold them that pitch of we're going to bring back the greatness of America, right, before the Great Depression and all that. Okay? And I would set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, right? The Egyptians talking about the Americans against the Americans. And they shall fight everyone against his brother and everyone against his neighbor, city against city and kingdom against kingdom. All right? So city against city, you're going to have different pockets of cities fighting against each other, right? Because you're going to have people that set up different guerrilla battle squadrons and all these different things. Damn, slam the door. Battle squadrons throughout the cities, right? We're talking about like maybe the city of Memphis versus the city of Nashville. And you notice that Memphis is more predominantly Jake, but Nashville is somewhat mixed, but leaning towards Esau. Okay, so it's gonna be different civil wars, class wars, race wars, forming, right, throughout America. And kingdom against kingdom, right? So you have different kingdoms. NATO, scripture says the beast shall hate the war, right? NATO is going to turn against America, right? Kingdom against kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst of thereof, right? The spirit of Egypt is already failing. People are giving up on the American dream. You have immigrants that are talented, right? He was speaking about it. They are taking their dollars and their talents and they're going back to their country and building that country up. So the spirit of Egypt is failing indeed, and I will destroy the counsel thereof. Right, the counsel is talking about the secret counsel of the wicked. That's pursuant to Psalms the 64th chapter. And they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards, right? But what does it say? That's Isaiah, where it says, let me go on and get it. Thou hast labor from thy youth. It's Isaiah 47, verse 12. It says, stand now with thine enchantments, right? Let me read in AMP. It says, persist then, Babylon, in your enchantments and your many sorceries. This is in the AMP Amplified Bible, with which you have labored from your youth. Perhaps you will be able to profit from them. Perhaps you may prevail and cause trembling, but the Most High is not going to allow them to prevail. The Most High is not going to allow them to profit. Why? Because this is the end of the road. As we speak, this is the end of the road for America, right? The Most High has drawn a line in the sand, and the Most High has as it says, in the book of Daniel with the Persians, right, the Medes, the Most High has numbered thy kingdom and found it wanting. All right, so this kingdom has been found wanting, and the only thing that's left is for the Most High to commence the destruction. Okay. Was there another news article? So we have here, you got Trump, right? Hegseth says that he's floating around renaming the Defense Department Department of Defense to the Department of War, and that just goes to show you the spirit that America is really in, because it's no longer a time of defending. We're approaching a time of war, okay, of pestilence. Right, that's part of the four horsemen in the book of Revelation. You got Revelation 6th chapter. Okay, things are changing, right? The Most High, he's gearing the nations, the world, for war. You know, the book of Ecclesiastes says a time for war, and a time for peace, a time to love, and a time to hate. Well, the Most High is gearing America for that time of war. That's in the book of Joel, where it talks about the younger nations, smaller nations saying what? Let the weak say, I am strong. So the Most High, he's mustering the host of the battle. Okay? He's mustering the host of the battle. You have situations going on in Venezuela, right? Where they're deploying troops, right? They're readying their mighty men, okay? Because of the threats by the American military. In fact, I think the American military already deployed a few warships over there near the coast of Venezuela. So things are heating up here in the Western Hemisphere, and that's going to bring China, that's going to bring Russia involved, and the world are going to see, like, look, we're tired of U.S. hegemony. We're tired of being bullied like we're nothing, and they're going to start aligning themselves with the Axis powers, okay? Because you got the Axis and you got the regular. I forgot what it's called, man. But you have one side of the World War I, you got the other side of World War II, right? So the Most High, he's forming that Axis power, right? That opposition against Babylon, America. Okay. Now I'm not gonna read the article. You guys can read it on your own, right? I'll just continue flowing in the spirit. Okay, let's go to 2nd Esdras, the 8th chapter. This is verse 50. It says, "For many great miseries shall be done to them, and the latter time shall dwell in the world, because they have walked in great pride." Okay, you see the pride of people on them every day. It's like Yahweh Shai doesn't really even exist in this universe. It's like the Heavenly Father, right? His remembrance has really been taken out of this earth. It's like the world has forgotten the power of the Heavenly Father, and things are getting ready to change, because the Lord, he's going to introduce himself to the earth again. In the scriptures, it talks about the Lord, right? It says, "Thou art a power that hide itself," right? But when he reveals himself, it ain't a good thing, when the Lord reveals himself. And that's what we, the hopeful elect, starting from the men of the Lord, the apostles, bishops, and others, that's what we're waiting for, honestly, is for Yahweh Shai to reveal himself. He already revealed himself through the prophecies. But I'm saying when shit really, really kicks up, because we are in the beginning stages of prophecies, when shit really, really kicks up, Yahweh Shai is going to reveal himself, and the people, the world, will fear. All right, they're going to fear for the majesty, for his glory. They're going to fear. It's not going to be a good thing, okay? And many scriptures talk about when the Lord takes hold of judgment, when he takes hold of that sword, okay? In the book of 2nd Esdras, it talks about what? People shall fear. All right, so when the Lord starts judging and he starts moving, I'm talking about to the point where you can't even deny that this is behind a greater power. It's not going to be good, okay? So I'm moving right now, so I'm gonna try to drive a bit slower. Let me see if I have any more precepts, right? Is there anything else in 2nd Esdras? Yeah, let me continue reading verse 51. "But understand thou for thyself, and seek out the glory for such as be like thee." Right? Seek out the glory for such as be like thee. I was talking about glory earlier. There's nothing wrong with seeking glory, but make sure it's not your own glory. Make sure it's not for vain glory. Okay, the glory that you're supposed to be seeking is the glory of Yahweh Hashem Yahshua. Because once he gets his glory, you also will be glorified as well. Okay? And that's what we're doing by patiently waiting, by really trying our best to live by the scriptures. As it says, being changed from glory to glory and living that life that Yahweh wanted us to live. Okay? For unto you is paradise open. Alright? The tree of life is planted. Okay? And that's what we see now. The book has been opened. Okay? The seals of the book has been unloosed, and now we are able to partake in that tree of life. Okay? And the Most High, he's given us that tree of life to what? That we may be able to heal ourselves, from our, our wickedness, the lies that we lived, all right, from the damage that we have sustained in this world. Okay, he's allowing us to what? To heal ourselves from that. Okay? The time to come is prepared, right? Because that kingdom is already prepared. Scripture says the kingdom is prepared. Watch. The time to come is prepared. Plenteousness is made ready. A city is builded, and rest is allowed. Yea, all right. Perfect goodness and wisdom. So we're waiting to enter into that city, right? But the process to enter into that city is that what? Pursuant to Acts 14, through much tribulation shall we enter into the kingdom of Yahweh. Let me get that real quick. And I may end it off on that. I wanted to go to Ezekiel, the 21st chapter, and talk about the sword being sharpened, but the Spirit led me to a different avenue. He led me down a different street. All praises to Yahweh Hashem Yahshua. Let's get that Acts 14. I think it's verse 33. Through much tribulation. Through much tribulation. Yeah, Acts 14 verse 22. Right? Oh, this is a good one. In the AMP, it says, strengthening and establishing the hearts, which are the minds of the disciples. And all of you are disciples, right? A disciple means someone who disciplines himself, and you're disciplining yourselves in the word of Yahweh Hashem Yahshua. Disciples go back to discipline. Encouraging them to remain firm in the faith, right? Through the epistles, through the lessons that we put out, through the doctrine that we teach. Okay? When you brothers and sisters are tuning in and listening to these videos, you're strengthening yourself, right, to remain firm in the faith. Saying it is through many tribulations and hardships, right, that we must enter the kingdom of Yahweh. Okay, so we have to go through the storm. Okay, that destruction that's coming. We're going to be in the midst of it. Right, but pursuant to the scripture that I brought out, my hand shall cover thee, that thou shalt not see hell. Okay, we believe in that. Yahweh Hashem Yahshua will cover his elect. So things are moving, things are happening. The stage is set, right? Judgment will be commenced, right? And Yahweh Hashem Yahshua is getting ready to move on all our enemies, the 2/3, the wicked, right? And also the rest of the nations. So with that, I'm going to give all praises, honors, and glories due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Barakah, Wadash. Giving double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of the millstone. Well, peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect out there. Shalom. Wa Mawaf, La Babal, Shalom.